with introductions from board members. I'll go first. My name is Anami Das. I'm the chair of the Human Rights Board, been a member since 2023.
There we go. Jack Champagne, I'm a board member as well.
Mark Lamb, board member, new.
Hi, Kate Bolton. I'm vice chair. Hello from Seattle.
Hello, everybody. Larry Nojos, board member.
Good evening, everyone. Leticia Trujillo, board member.
And board staff, would y'all like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, my name is Gabriela Marquez. I am the new manager for the Office of Civil Rights and the staff liaison.
Good evening, Sonia Lara, director of the Office of Equity and Inclusion.
And I had seen Attorney Lay that was joined, but maybe she'll rejoin in just a minute. Gruner.
Cool. I'm just so excited that there's 6 members here right now. That's fantastic. It's been so long. Thank you, everybody. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting? Has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda?
I will move.
You'll so moved. Do I hear fantastic. Because we're doing a hybrid meeting, we should do a roll call vote. Director Lara, or I don't know who, but yeah, cool.
Yes, I could do that. Chair Das.
Aye.
Vice Chair Kate Bolton.
Aye.
Board member Kimberly Andujo. Board member Sean Champagne.
Aye.
Board member Larry Nojos.
Aye.
Board member Mark Lamb.
Aye.
Board member Leticia Trujillo.
Hi.
Cool. And has everyone looked over the minutes for the meeting from May? It's been a minute since we've been able to meet. I'll actually move to approve those. Do I hear a second?
I will second.
Fantastic. Can we get another roll call vote, please?
Chair Anami Das.
Aye.
Vice Chair Kate Bolton.
Aye.
Board member Sean Champagne.
Aye.
Board member Larry Nojos.
Aye.
Board member Mark Lamb.
Aye.
Board member Leticia Trujillo.
Aye.
That is wonderful. Moving right along to directors' reports. Are there reports public comment? Is anyone here present, a member of the public, to make a public comment? I messed up that sentence. Are there any members of the public here to make a public comment before the board? And if you're on Zoom, you could do the raise hand react. I'm not sure. I can't see very well if anyone else is present. Cool. Now we will move on to the director's reports. I know it's only your 3rd day back from leave, but if there's anything to report, we would love to hear how getting OCR started back up is going.
Sounds good. And maybe I'll introduce myself again because I only joined one meeting in May and I was out on maternity leave. So happy to be back. We started the process, and maybe Director Lara can share a little bit more about finalizing the job description so that we can hire a second person for the Office of Civil Rights and Consumer Protection so we can be fully staffed. So that's exciting. I also wanted to remind everyone about the 2 trainings that are available with the City of Albuquerque for Boards and Commissions and Open Meeting Act. I'm happy to send out the information via email to everyone. We're all really encouraged to take that training. And I also wanted to make myself available for coffee or tea with all the board members. I am new, and now I feel that I'm ready to make the commitments without thinking about births and labor and all of that, to meet with you, get to know you. Let me admit her. And just learn what your priorities are in serving with the Human Rights Board. So happy to serve and happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Chair Doss, I just would like to echo what Gabriela has mentioned, what our manager of OCR and consumer protection has demonstrated in just the last few days. The commitment makes you very, and I hope that you all can see, in just 3 days, she's already met with contractors to ensure more seamless communication with our constituents. She's been able to build relationship with you all and extend ways to be able to streamline that relationship and grow that and nurture it. She's been able to collaborate internally with other departments, do onboarding work likely with our new board member that we were so excited to welcome on. And so just naming this is a lot of work she's already done, hitting the ground running, coming back post maternity leave. And so we are absolutely making a priority of making sure she has enough staff to keep up with her and all the running that she's doing to support your vision and your work. Just as an update of that position was a new position. And so it had to go through a class and comp. That process has been completed. And so we're just finalizing those little HR details that came through this week. And so we're hoping to have an update for you by next month. Hopefully that will have a couple of candidates to be able to select and move forward. And that's our goal. So just want to provide that to you and just want to extend my gratitude to you all for your commitment to this work. It's very important work as we, I'm not going to say anything new to you, but consider the environment we are, socio and political, knowing that you are here in this space. For me, I'm very grateful, and partnering with Gabriela, who is a proven and capable leader, just left from the small business development, used to be where she was working, was now in the Mexico Black Chamber facility, just a few blocks down for their ribbon cutting, and just looking at a lot of work that she did to drive and build that space. And it just, again, warms my heart to know that she's delivering that same level of white glove service to you all and to our community. So that's with that, I'll end and say thank you for all that you do.
For sure. And I'm sure all of the board members want to echo that. Thank you. This is exciting. This is like the happiest I've been during one of these meetings in a minute, also given the environment that we're in. So thank you. We can move along to actually, wait, does anyone have any questions for OEI and OCR? Yeah. Fantastic. Then let's move along to the resolution that was included in the agenda packet. I'd like to open the floor for discussion before moving to vote, see if there's any amendments that anyone has or any questions that anyone has about the resolution. It is rather long, and there's an attachment in addition to the already very long resolution. And if there is no discussion, I move to take a vote to approve.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
So this is the resolution that was attached to the email, and it went over, I believe it's a form online to submit a concern about discrimination. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. One question that I had, and I apologize if this is redundant to what's already there. There was a checkbox menu for discerning what the exact cause of discrimination was, or what the basis was. And one of the options was for nationality or place of origin, if I remember correctly. And one question that I had was if that would include things like a person's level of fluency with English or their native language. And the reason I ask that is I do see that as something that people sometimes get discriminated against. My work is in healthcare, and I see that happen where a person would really benefit from having an interpreter present to make sure that everyone's communicating and understanding one another. And that sometimes doesn't happen just because it takes time and resources.
Yeah, for sure. I know there is a separate language access resolution or ordinance that the city has. that is supposed to guarantee that when interacting with the city, at least, interpretation services are always available. I don't know if we have legal representation in the meeting with us right now, but, oh, fantastic. Yeah, if someone from legal would like to address the language access and its relationship to the human rights ordinance, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm covering for Ian, but I'll get the ordinance up. I just looked at it. I just have to refresh what I just read. I understand that I think it's OEI that has authority to enforce the language access ordinance and implement it, but let me just find that. Do you have a cite to the ordinance by chance? Do you have a citation to the language access ordinance?
I am looking it up right now.
Okay, I can do that too. I just thought you would have maybe a quicker.
Oh, it seems to be a resolution instead. R-21-231.
Okay, let me look in the council website.
In the meantime, the question flagged for me that the attachment, the draft attachment in the agenda, in the definition section does not actually include national origin or ancestry that I see here in the list. So I think that would be a necessary edit before we can finalize this attachment, this complaint packet. In addition to there are a few other modest adjustments that I think would be important to make, but that missing definition should certainly be addressed.
Certainly. Do you know if in the human rights ordinance there is a definition of national ancestry or origin?
No, it's currently.
Okay. Then I think we have to find a definition that we are comfortable with recommending. Because all the other definitions were copied from the original form or the ordinance post the amendments from last year. So I will flag that.
Hi, whenever you're ready, could you please repeat your question just so I make sure?
Oh, sorry, is that me, my question?
That you had about the language access resolution?
Yeah, just if someone felt like they were discriminated against based on their primary language, primary preferred language, if they would have an option for that being addressed.
With your board,
Yeah, with the quasi judicial function of this board, would language access like complaints go through the same grievance procedure as other forms of discrimination that are covered by the ordinance?
okay.
So this is Board Member Trujillo, if I may. So just clarifying question. So the language barrier, the language access, it would be access to translation interpretation services I don't know if I'm wording this correctly, but in the event that there's a language barrier, we're talking about access to the translation and interpretation services. Is that correct?
Yeah, it might be helpful if I have an example. So let's say, for example, someone for whom English is not their native language, or they're not proficient or fluent enough to understand everything that's being communicated. If that person is not offered translation services, and as a result of that, there is a negative impact to that person, I would argue that that's discrimination based off their native language and not being proficient in English. And if they would have an option for filing for discrimination based off that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I really appreciate that, because that I am the immediate past president of Mana National, and that is one of the things that one of the bases our organization was founded on, is that language barrier. Many in 1974, many women were going to, when the hospital giving birth to their in the hospital giving birth, they would there was no language. Actually, when there was a language barrier, there was whomever could, quote unquote, speak their language would ask them if they wanted to be sterilized. And so, meaning if they wanted to, they were taking it as, oh, I want to be clean. Of course, I want to be cleansed, or, and so many women were finding that they were not able to have any more children after the birth of their first child. So that is why I just wanted to clarify, because this is something that is very near and dear to me, for reasons of not repeating our past in that this is in 1974, and here we are still trying to dealing with this issue. And so I really and welcome Board Member Lamb, and thank you for bringing up the language access.
Yeah, I wanted to suggest, probably based on what you said, Leticia, is that I think what we're looking at here is basically two separate human rights issues. One of them is a discrimination issue, and one of them is a failure to accommodate issue. I think if we're talking about a failure to accommodate for language services, that is going to, I would suggest altering the Human Rights Ordinance to create an affirmative right to language services for non-English speakers, in addition to creating non-English speaking as a protected category for discrimination. That would be one of the edits I would suggest to the resolution.
And thank you for that, Board Member Champagne, because I was trying to, and that's exactly it, like trying to, is this language barrier, is it based on discrimination, or, I was trying to, is this two separate things, categories, or is it, does it come, is it one? So that's what I'm trying to wrap my brain around.
For sure. And I'm not sure if language access is covered at any point specifically in the Human Rights Ordinance. And I think that if we as a board were to be presented with language access complaint, that the specific language of the ordinance wouldn't cover that, but I'm wondering if the resolution would. And I think that goes along with the question for legal. I don't know if there's an update that you have.
Well, because is language a protected class?
Well, national origin and ancestry are, and someone's language can be used
It's a protected class.
a proxy, like an indicator of someone's national origin or ancestry, and then the basis for someone's discriminatory action. So I think it could perhaps fall under that protected characteristic. But yeah, I agree that it's sort of two distinctive questions. How someone's language may result in any number of adverse discriminatory actions, and then the specific question of language access and translation services, and wanting to ensure those are available for all the folks in Albuquerque.
So I don't know if the ordinance is specific enough to include that language barrier, as if we're seeing it, viewing it as a protected class. So I think that the ordinance might need some revision and some edits to make it more specific too. If
I
that
know
makes
in the
sense.
past, yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
know in the past, OEI has included closed caption or the closed caption ordinance as like something that OEI managed and enforced. I also noticed that legal turned on their microphone.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Sorry. And I can look into this further and have you briefed at the next meeting, but it looks to me like you have a jurisdiction over complaints on unlawful discriminatory practices. I don't see that language access is specifically mentioned or as one of the categories. But like you were mentioning, if there's other discriminatory practices that are related to ancestry, and I'd have to look at the whole list of how that's defined. But yeah, I don't see it specifically mentioned, but I can verify that. And as far as I look at this resolution for language access, it looks like it's just asking our staff to have language access programs and plans for providing, better language access throughout the city. I don't see a complaint process listed in the resolution. Does that at all answer your question?
It brings up a thought for me of if we keep it ambiguous for this resolution as to whether language access is part of if it's protected under the same basis of national origin and ancestry. If we don't set a definition, but we still pass the resolution in order to update the form, we could set a precedent or decide that as those issues come in, rather than making a decision now while it's all hypothetical. Just an idea. I also know that like ambiguity can be an issue for boards.
Yeah, I mean, if you are consistent with how you interpret it and flesh it out on a case-by-case basis, yeah, I could see how it could be developed throughout the complaint process.
And I do want to circle back to Vice Chair Bolton's proposed amendment to the resolution, or the attachment to the resolution to define national origin and ancestry. Yeah, see if there was a proposed definition or any further commentary on that.
I would want to seek guidance from other authorities that have defined. I mean, it's not something I'm going to just propose on the spot. I would want to consult other enforcement agencies and authorities on how that has been defined. I think there are other small changes that I would be comfortable proposing here in this meeting, but I'm also happy to do that as part of a separate review and just a line editing process defer to you, Chair Doss, on how to proceed.
We could vote to we could send this resolution to the Policy Research and Investigation Subcommittee for further review, and with you as chair of said subcommittee, then like you could offer revisions or a committee substitute to the resolution to propose to in a subsequent meeting. Does that sound good, despite the stuttering that I have adopted for that sentence?
Yeah, if the other members of the board are supportive of that approach, if there's more of a sense of urgency on finalizing this document, we could try and address some of those here today. But I do think any question of defining key terms, we want to be very thoughtful on how we do that. And especially how we're seeing on a national scale that people are being targeted because of their national origin and ancestry, and things like language and other factors are being used to do that. So I think we want to be very intentional on definitions across the board in the complaint packet that we're giving to the members of the public.
I fully agree with what was just said, and I actually do have an amendment to propose to this resolution to remove sections 2 and 3 and renumber the other sections accordingly. And then we can address the grievance packet in a different resolution in the future. That way the online form gets the more like, what is it? I don't know. The online form can be revised before the PDF complaint packet that folks can print out would be revised. So to shorten everything I just said, I move to amend the resolution to remove sections 2 and 3 and renumber the subsequent sections accordingly. Do I hear a second or further discussion?
Just to clarify, section 2 includes the grievance packet, and section 3 includes the language access language.
Yes.
Okay, I will second that motion.
With that, could we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Chara Nami Das,
Aye.
Vice Chair Kate Bolton,
Aye.
Board Member Sean Champagne,
Aye.
Board Member Larry Nohos,
Aye.
Board Member Mark Lamb,
Aye.
Board Member Leticia Trujillo.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So we are back on the resolution as amended. So removing sections 2 and 3. Do I hear any further discussion or a motion to approve as amended?
Before we approve, have we determined whether we are going to refer the grievance packet to the policy subcommittee?
Good catch. Yeah.
I would,
Member Trujillo?
okay, thank you. I would, thank you, Chair Doss. I would definitely feel a lot more comfortable if we do take it for just to have clearly defined, you know, in terms of resolution, just have it clearly defined what it is that we are, what we as a board are defining as a protected class. So I would feel so much better if we did go through the other Yes. It's been a long day.
So I think taking a vote might help formalize it. But I would like to refer the matter of the complaint packet and language access and its connection to national origin and ancestry to the Research, Investigation, and Policy Subcommittee for further review. Do I hear a second?
I second.
And can we get another roll call vote, please?
Chair Anami Das,
Aye.
Vice Chair Kate Bolton,
Aye.
Board Member Sean Champagne,
Aye.
Board Member Larry Nohos,
Aye.
Board Member Mark Lamb,
Aye.
Board Member Leticia Trujillo.
Aye.
Fantastic. We are back on the resolution as amended, which no longer has a section 2 or 3. I move to approve the resolution amending the online complaint submission form. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Can we get another roll call vote, please?
Chair Anami Das,
Aye.
Vice Chair Kate Bolton,
Aye.
Board Member Sean Champagne,
Aye.
Board Member Larry Nohos,
Aye.
Board Member Mark Lamb,
Aye.
Board Member Leticia Trujillo.
Aye.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Getting the agenda pulled back up on my phone. The only matters left are additional discussion and announcements. I would like to open the floor for any additional discussion topics that any board member might want to introduce before moving on to announcements.
Board Chair, I do have a discussion, if I may.
Member Trujillo, you have the floor.
Thank you. So we, as you all may know, I am an outreach worker. I work with our unaccompanied homeless and abandoned youth in our community. And we are currently in crisis with our community resources when it comes to youth transitional housing. As you all may or may not know, Job Corps did close their doors. So a lot of our youth that were living on the premises that are no longer there and have, again, acquired a homeless status or have been placed in other youth facilities or youth shelters. I mean, and so YDI right now, their rapid rehousing program will be over as of November. And New Day's housing program there is a huge wait list. So the other resources that we have access is the Casa Hermosa, which is also youth transitional housing program. However, I've said this before, on a great day, some of these youth transitional housing programs have a dozen beds, if that. They have 12 beds and for our homeless youth. And it is just everybody in the city is competing for those 12 beds. And just by myself on my caseload, I have currently for this school year, which is starting in August, last month is when the school year started. Well, actually late July for us. I've already have over 200 kids that I'm working with, youth that have been identified as unaccompanied, abandoned, or homeless youth. And so I am reaching out to you all. If you all know of any resources, as you all know, the climate of our community right now, there's a lot of resources being cut. And, if I'm of the mindset, if you want to up the ante on qualifying for SNAP or Medicaid or things of that nature, I mean, I'm not in full agreement with it, but it is what it is. But for our youth, it's just devastating to me that our resources are being cut so badly for our youth, who many of them have not had an opportunity to even have a chance at life. And so I'm reaching out to you all and your contacts, if there's anything that any resources or ideas or anything that you all can provide in terms of to best support our youth. And housing, shelter is it's huge for our youth right now. We are in dire needs of youth transitional housing. And right now in our community, there is as I have been doing outreach in our community for youth resources, it's been kind of like, oh, well, if they're out on the street, have them call WEC, which is the West Side Emergency Shelter. And the issue that I have with that, the very strong issue that I have with it, is that you place our youth in a general population setting with adults who have several other either disabilities or medical needs or mental health needs, that it's not a safe environment for our youth to be unaccompanied in a environment where there are adults living who have other things that they're dealing with. So if you all have any ideas, any resources, anything that you can offer, we are desperate, and I'm open and receptive to whatever you have, whatever we can do to help our youth.
For sure. Could you provide more information as to who "we" is? I know the organization that you're talking about, but if you could share what Title I does, or is it Title I?
It is Title I.
Cool. And how board members could reach out to offer those resources.
So I work as an outreach worker with Albuquerque Public Schools Title I Homeless Project, the McKinney-Vento program. And in fact, Chair Doss has come and toured our facilities and has during our open house, which we may, I'm sure we'll be having one pretty soon here. But what the things that we do is we work with students, kids who have been in a displaced situation. So whether they be doubled up due to financial hardship or loss of housing, loss of stability. We have, as you all know, addiction in our community. So if parents are going through their own recovery of addiction and the students are left, their children are left on their own with a family member, and sometimes even with friends, or wherever the kids land, that is where my team and I come in, and we support the students, and mainly it's educational connection. So we help with resources such as food, clothes, shelter, hygiene products, any basic needs that the students may have, we step in and help with. But it is getting more and more difficult because our shelves right now, our pantry, like our own little, we run on donations. So our food pantry our shelves are pretty much empty right now because we have given so much of our resources out to community because it's been that desperately needed. So we have several community partners that help stock our shelves at times, and right now it's just a lot of those resources are being cut. So food donation is a big one right now. Towels. We have kids who end up in shelters and they or hotels even without washcloths, towels, toilet paper. So we supply them with all those basic needs: toothbrush, toothpaste, like anything that they need just to survive and get to school and get through each day.
Thank you for providing further information on that, and for what you do, and for what that organization does, and for bringing up the humanitarian crisis that America is going through right now in terms of its homelessness epidemic. And I say epidemic with a lot of hesitance because it's not homeless people's fault necessarily or definitionally. The epidemic is in the hearts and minds of leaders who are unwilling to address the humanitarian crisis that is ongoing, not calling out anyone in particular. The nature of this board does make it so that we are very limited in what we can do. But all of us as individuals are able to connect with Title I and other community organizations to share resources and do what we can to look out for each other. Because as we're seeing on a federal level, the government is abandoning their obligation to address this situation. So yeah.
And the other thing that has been also a big cut with our youth is transportation. I know they have the city bus, so when I've reached out to community, they say, oh, well, our city bus, they can take the city bus, it's free. But when you are a high school student trying to navigate through life and are responsible for paying your own way through life and having to have a job and going to school, and in the middle of the night, we have a lot of our youth who work in positions such as security jobs, and in the middle of the night, when they leave their shifts, to take a city bus home is really, really tough. Or even to when they're not feeling well and to get to a doctor's appointment or to go to a job interview. There's and we had programs, independent future programs for our youth that would provide transportation and to and from doctor's appointments, urgent care, job interviews, and things of that nature. But those resources are also being cut or have been cut. They've already been cut. So transportation, haircuts for our youth. Haircuts are getting so expensive that if there's anything that we can connect with, there's also the laundry love programs, so we have taken advantage of those types of resources. However, it just never seems to be enough because the more and more we've access to, whatever's left of resources, the more and more the need is just getting higher and higher. It's greater and greater. So if there's any ideas, resources, anyone we can connect with for advocacy or outreach, please feel free to reach out to us at the McKinney-Vento program, the Title I through APS.
Thank you. I actually have a question for legal relating to this, and it's been a question that the board's asked repeatedly since like 2020. And I'm not sure about the answer because it's been over my head the entire time, like every time I've heard it. But I did want to know what this board is able to do in terms of fundraising for certain public good efforts. or like basic needs efforts in the community, or if we are allowed to have any relationship with any amount of money so that we could actually put that into community effectively.
If you're allowed to fundraise, well, it's not specifically, as you know, authorized in your ordinance. I don't see any prohibition either, as long as you're following conflict of interest rules that are applicable to board members that are in city ordinance and city charter. I don't see us, yeah, I don't know that there's a specific prohibition on it.
Just to make sure that we're being very cautious with the idea of us interacting with any financial matter. Could there be a discussion for the next board meeting about like what the exact limitations are and the proper way to be accountable to the public and to the community in pursuing that kind of thing?
Yeah, and I think as far as like, yeah, holding the money in account, yeah, that might be logistically, it may be something where you just recommend contributions to certain causes that your board are affiliated with your board's mission. As far as setting up an account, that might even be like a fiscal question. Do you have, I mean, maybe using a fiscal agent or something? But again, like I'm just speaking off the cuff, so I would really want to look into it further before saying that setting up an account was permissible. That's a little more complex. I hadn't thought about actually taking the money in.
Sure. Member Bolton, I saw your microphone turned on.
Yeah, thank you. I guess for me I mean, Chair Das, you underscored how we're kind of in the midst of a crisis. So, you know, there are catastrophic federal cuts underway and coming in the future around like much of the safety net infrastructure around all sorts of services populations needs. And so it does make me think about how the board can encourage the city of Albuquerque to maintain that infrastructure to the extent possible, right? So state and local governments in facing and navigating these cuts will make decisions on how funding is allocated, on how populations are prioritized on, and you know, those that are left behind. So I think it does present a sort of bigger picture opportunity to me to think about how we engage with the city and its various agencies on what is, you know, what is our role in encouraging the city to navigate these challenges in a way that centers the needs of vulnerable people and people who face discrimination. And so it also comes to mind just because of, you know, I'm here at this conference in Seattle and I was talking about attacks on people experiencing homelessness and people who use drugs, and members of the board may be aware of an executive order from the president in July calling for a prioritization of civil commitment and voluntary treatment, and that denounced housing first and harm reduction policies. So essentially the policies that we know are most effective to addressing the crises of homelessness and overdose. And so, you know, I think we'll see cities and states begin to adopt that posture as a form of pre-compliance or over-compliance, you know, kind of going into alignment with those priorities, even though they are in direct contradiction with the evidence. And so I'm just thinking about, yeah, the sort of bigger picture opportunities of encouraging the city to invest, continue investments and resource allocation to protect vulnerable populations, whether it's kids, as Member Trujillo has highlighted, or people experiencing homelessness. And, you know, urging against pre and over compliance with those federal priorities that we know will do enormous harm to our community. So I don't know if that's a resolution or if it's ongoing discussion, if it's engagement with the state, the city's various health and social service agencies, if it's all of the above. I'm just kind of inviting the other members of the board to think about our role as the city begins to navigate these cuts, these harmful policy priorities, and who knows what else we can anticipate in the coming months and coming years. So I'll pause there, or not pause, I'll just stop talking. But wanted to raise that just, and it's been on my mind because I'm here and I'm talking about it at this conference. So thanks.
Thank you.
If I may,
Go for
Board
it.
Member Bolton,
Trujillo.
thank you so much for that. Thank you. I appreciate that, Board Member Bolton. And the thing is, you know, I am in full agreement. Just how do we move forward? Right now, my homeless youth that are doubled up, meaning couch surfing or living with a friend, or, you know, just they do not fall under the HUD definition of homeless. And so they don't qualify for some of the services, the little resources that we have. They don't qualify because they're not HUD definition of homeless. But if they are not, they don't know where they're going to. Every night is like, okay, which friend's house and they're couch surfing. Where am I going to stay tonight? If they do stay with a friend or a family member, or, you know, for a night, then they don't meet that HUD definition of homelessness, because then they're considered doubled up. So as a board, how can we advocate for our youth so that they can have this? There's and not for those resources, those for our I spoke to the mayor, like allocate city receives our youth a population.
You're cutting out a little bit, so we're missing a little bit of what you're saying.
Am I cutting off?
I don't know if it's our internet or yours, but yeah, you're kind of skipping a little bit.
Okay, sorry. But just our advocacy as a board, how can we advocate so that we, our youth, so we create those opportunities and resources for our youth moving forward? And also, how do we advocate for what qualifies, what criteria our youth needs to meet in order to have access to whatever resources are available or any opportunities we can create for them?
So I do want to add that with the Homeless Rights Initiative that we did last year, I think a way that I went about it that was not productive, as I wish it was by trying to hold anyone to account, because no one is ever going to like accept that as like constructive criticism organizationally. So I think if we were to do something similar, we would have to focus on how do we as a community go from here. And as unfortunate as it is to say, like I think every member of this board has been affected by the federal government at some point this year, personally and in our organizations or in our work. City leaders have the opportunity to put state resources toward things that do actually help. And I think that if we were to find exactly where those avenues are and present those, rather than trying to give someone a report card, then that conversation might go a bit better and have a greater effect than past conversations have.
I think what you're touching on is kind of a broader problem in homelessness services in general, which is that I think it's not limited to HUD or the federal government. I think it's just kind of a broad issue, state, city level, county level as well, in that the way that we define homelessness and the way that we define need is politically contingent and subject to all sorts of quantitative measures. And so oftentimes has a tendency to be both over-inclusive and under-inclusive. And, you know, anyone who's worked with homelessness for any length of time runs up against this in several different avenues. I know it was definitely an issue with regards to various organizations who were working in homelessness during the legislative session, I think 2 legislative sessions ago, attempting to broaden the state's reach with regards to homeless youth, and largely failing because of, you know, the sort of entrenched contingency with how the state and city governments define homelessness. And I think what Chair Doss alludes to is that there is a lot of inertia there, and there's a sort of protectiveness of the way that that homelessness is currently approached that is kind of difficult to move. I think even with a positive vision of where it could go, where advocacy runs into problems is to create a motivation to move in that direction. I know that this has been, I think, historically a problem with altering the way that we deal with homelessness here in the city, but, you know, even elsewhere. So it's, I think part of a larger conversation that has to be had about how homelessness is approached on a macro level. You know, there's no, I think, direct solution. I don't think there's really a solution at all, so much as that there is a broader conversation to be had, I think, and that would be it's going to require, I think, more people at the table to really seriously commit to broadening that focus before, you know, we can talk about, I think, advocacy in that direction.
And we did I've been involved in this work for several years. This is my 5th year as an outreach worker, but prior to that, I was involved in the youth advocacy component of the community work for many years. I've been very involved and connected in our community. And so there was a big push to pass during this last legislative session is to pass the governor's Office of Housing, which did not get passed. And so part of that work was to provide that youth transitional funding. Now we have secured through my work with the governor's office, we you know, and the partnership that we developed through even you know, our what we have initiated in our McKinney-Vento program is the Family Youth Stabilization Project. So right now we are still working on the funding component to what that's going to look like for our youth and moving forward. But again, I think advocacy is a huge part of the work, and specifically, of course, for our youth and homeless population. It's just gotten, that in itself has become a pandemic. Just the lack of resources and the conditions that our youth, even at shelters, that sometimes they have to endure because of limited space or because of limited resources.
I think what you're describing in your work are things that I believe I've heard over the years as problems that we want to avoid. Those were the policy discussions that we're having, is, you know, how do we prevent what is currently happening to you from happening? And now that you're kind of on the front lines of what a failure to act looks like, I think it's sort of a stark illustration of the urgency of the issue. So, I mean, I think it's important to you know, to express that we're really staring down the barrel of it.
And if I may jump in, I do think that this is a discussion that we should put intention toward, and I know that Member Hinojos and Member Trujillo are both involved in the Advocacy and Representation Subcommittee. And I would like to encourage that subcommittee to discuss this matter further and continue this at the next meeting of the board. I also do want to tack on a brief bit of board history before we adjourn for the day. In 1971, Albuquerque experienced its first riot as part of the Chicano Rebellion. And 2 weeks later, human rights were added to the Albuquerque Charter. And that charter Article 8, is what led to the Human Rights Ordinance. So I do think that that is an important thing to remember, that after 50 years, might have been forgotten. There is a very practical reason why human rights is something that the government needs to care about. And it affects everybody. With that said, the next Albuquerque Human Rights Board meeting will be held on October 18th, I believe. Let me double check. The 3rd Thursday of October, which is, no idea. At the same time, same place. And I will send
16th.
16th. Thank you, everybody. And I look forward to further discussion at that meeting. But before we adjourn, are there any other announcements or reminders that board members have for each other and the public? If not, then I move to adjourn.
Hold a second.
We don't have to do a roll call vote for adjourning. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Have a good
everybody.
evening.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Good night.